On April 7, 2026, the United States issued a final ultimatum to Iran. President Donald Trump warned that if the Strait of Hormuz remained closed, the entire Iranian civilization would be destroyed. As American warships moved toward the Persian Gulf, the world braced for a nuclear strike. The immediate target was the Bushehr nuclear power plant. 4 bombs had already been dropped in its vicinity during earlier skirmishes. A direct hit here would release tons of radioactive material into the Gulf, contaminating the water supply, rendering the region uninhabitable for generations. But the strike never happened. Exactly 90 minutes before the deadline expired, the United States and Iran announced a 2-week ceasefire. The pause allowed for emergency peace talks in Islamabad. Those negotiations lasted 21 hours before collapsing. Both sides walked away, immediately returning the threat of war to the table. The failure in Islamabad shows how difficult it is for a superpower to manage local conflicts. Even after forcing a ceasefire, the United States couldn't bridge the gap between its own demands and Iran's reality in less than a day. During the talks, Iran brought a 10-point proposal to the table. They demanded the removal of all sanctions, recognition of their control over the Strait of Hormuz, and the withdrawal of U.S. forces from the Middle East. Most importantly, they insisted on maintaining their right to uranium enrichment. This chart shows the diplomatic gap that stopped the deal. The American delegation demanded Iran suspend nuclear activity for 20 years. Iran countered with 5 years. Neither side would budge. That 15-year discrepancy ended negotiations, forcing the announcement that no agreement was reached. The most surprising element of these negotiations was the host. Pakistan brokered this ceasefire by bypassing traditional Western diplomatic channels, using a direct military back channel between Army Chief Asim Munir and Donald Trump. But Pakistan's moment as a global peacemaker was brief. Their attempt to control the narrative was undermined by actors in the region who were not interested in the deal Pakistan had helped negotiate. Within hours of the ceasefire announcement, Israel launched over 100 strikes into Lebanon, killing more than 300 people. Israel maintained that Lebanon was not part of the American agreement. This decision damaged the credibility of the talks. Iran argued that the United States cannot claim to want peace while its closest regional ally continues a bombing campaign. With the peace talks completely dead, the United States Navy swiftly began a comprehensive naval blockade of major Iranian ports. This forced major Asian economies that rely on Middle Eastern oil to react, and their responses revealed a clear divide in geopolitical leverage. China acted with defiance. Knowing the American blockade was designed to stop their vessels too, Beijing warned the United States not to interfere with its oil shipments from Iran. India, however, found itself completely sidelined. Despite its neutrality, Indian-flagged merchant vessels carrying millions of barrels of oil were intercepted. Iranian gunboats opened fire on them, forcing 8 separate ships to perform U-turns and retreat. This left New Delhi in a vulnerable position. While India's Foreign Minister S. J. Shankar had earlier dismissed Pakistan's role as a middleman, his own government could not secure safe passage for its ships and was reduced to asking Washington for temporary oil waivers. Economic size alone does not provide leverage if a nation cannot protect its own trade routes or secure its energy supply without a superpower's permission. The result is a double blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, squeezing the most critical maritime choke point on Earth from both the American and Iranian sides. Iran is now weaponizing global trade logistics through psychological warfare. On April 17th, they announced the strait was open, only to reverse the decision the next day and resume firing on cargo ships. This line chart tracks the economic volatility triggered by the closure. When the strait briefly opened, oil prices fell by 10%, only to spike back up the moment Iran resumed its blockade. Now the world is watching the April 22nd deadline, which marks the official end of the 2-week ceasefire. Without a deal, the region returns to the edge of a wider war. These weeks have shown that positioning a massive fleet is no longer a guarantee of stability. In this conflict, the terms of peace are being dictated as much by regional powers and rogue allies as they are by the nations with the largest militaries.